Let's watch popular YouTube channel Meidas Touch go from hopeful to disappointed on election night. Of all the videos I've done so far, this group of people is by far the most delusional, and they remain delusional throughout almost the entire video. Let's take a look.
50% of the most important issues are issues that are favoring Vice President Kamala Harris. We're seeing signs that that Selzer poll out of Iowa it accurately reflected the electorate that's out there. You know,
is that right?
Where women and frankly all pro-democracy voters are fed up and would vote in greater numbers even than in 2020. It was always our.
Is that right? Because Kamala only won women by 7, Biden won women by 12.
There was 2 or 3 points between them. It has narrowed and narrowed and narrowed down to today, this morning, 1.2 points, even 1.1 points between them. And I was just thinking, you know, that just can't be right. It just doesn't make any sense.
This guy probably has the most wild takes throughout the video. A common theme is the media being biased against Trump.
So then I start doing a bit of research and discovering that it turns out that these polls, many of them, the survey area is only 700 people or 1,200 people. You really can't get a sense of how the country...
That is not research. Those polls, it says that in the poll, like right at the top usually, the amount of likely voters or registered voters. I wouldn't really call that research, just looking at a poll.
Is behaving with those small numbers. And so really, it seems that most of the media coverage has been built on a bit of a lie, giving Donald Trump a false sense of security. And let's not forget that undoubtedly some of these polls have been funded by Republicans. And
so as you'll see throughout the video, this guy has a lot of crazy takes, just like that one.
The people who I know who are on the ground, whether it's in Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin, are saying they've never seen this level of civic engagement, of organization. I mean, whereas the Trump campaign did not knock on some of these houses at all.
Well, they paid Elon Musk to do it.
It's so funny how obsessed all the left-wing people seem to be with knocking on doors.
And he failed in that machine as well. So they don't even have a grassroots door-knocking process, which is how you win votes at the end of the day.
I think it's her ground game that's going to, you know, get her to win. I've canvassed for campaigns before. It makes a difference. And it might be a long night to end the drama law. You might all need to get into your pajama laws, but we are here for it.
But I felt at peace because I felt the American people understood that this is an individual who hates, who destroys, who is a threat.
It's only the media that gives us the impression, because they like to both sides everything and give equal time to each candidate. I mean, even NBC, after putting Kamala Harris on Saturday Night Live the other night, now have to give a minute.
It is crazy to me that the media is not biased enough for him.
And a half to Donald Trump to keep that balance. Otherwise, the FCC have something to say about it. I mean, look, one candidate is a dictator. He's not even a possible dictator or a future dictator. He's a minority candidate. He is a fringe candidate who makes an awful lot of noise. And I believe in the American people. I believe that we have a great instinct for the difference between good and bad and right and wrong.
He's such a fringe candidate that he won the Electoral College easily, and he won the popular vote.
Is all of the Republicans who are not admitting to the fact that they're going to vote for Kamala Harris. But when it actually comes down to it, and when they are in the polling place, alone, just them and the ballot paper and a pen, they're just not going to put a cross in Donald Trump's box. And so
this fantasy a lot of people on the left worked up in their heads did not come to pass at all.
Women are coming out in droves. I mean, the women percentage breaking for Trump over Biden even is massive, even among white women. It's a huge difference.
Trump won white women.
I can't think of a person who was more qualified for that job, who ran the most amazing campaign. She was completely herself. She was not afraid to show her feminine side at the same time as she showed her competent side. And I think Oprah said, like, step into her power. We saw her step into a power. And there's reporting coming in that DeKalb County in Georgia, they had to clear the polling centers because there were bomb threats. You know, what do you see that as his strategy, or like, how does that even help him at this point?
Well, I think.
Did she just say that the bomb threats are part of Trump's strategy? What?
Because they are rooted in xenophobia and racism and white supremacy. And so that is the view of America that they have. They don't consider the fact that actually the majority of Americans are quite liberal, are quite progressive, and do not have these extreme views that Trump has. So this time around, I think that he's become a...
What's the extreme view? The thing that a lot of these commentators on the left either don't understand or pretend not to understand, for the most part, Trump's policies are not that extreme. Like his policies on, for example, he's open to raising the minimum wage. His trade policies, they're not really far right. A lot of his policies, his non-interventionism, certainly not a neocon. In a lot of cases, Trump has popular policies that the majority of the country actually agrees with. Okay, so now we're at the part of the night where data is starting to come in. And like you might have guessed, this crew is incredibly optimistic at the beginning of the night about some of the data.
Let's see right here. Kamala is up in suburban Hamilton County with 65% in. Trump won this county 52-46 in 2020.
So as you'll see here, they do the cherry pick thing where they try to find one county in Indiana, Ohio, whatever, anything that's going to point Kamala in the right direction.
People in chat are saying I'm feeling good. Somebody said I'm feeling stressed, a little bit tired. I think we'll be doing good by the end of tonight. Georgia is supposed to be called tonight. And at the same time, if we see this trend of women turning out en masse across the country, we should see a solid victory. Because Ann Seltzer's poll was backed up by a Kansas poll. A Kansas poll that shows Donald Trump is losing among elderly women. Donald Trump is losing among independent women.
Ann Seltzer's poll was off by so much. Double digits. I believe she was off by 16 points.
Because I just dropped a bomb right there, a bombshell right there. 2/3 of Hamilton County, Indiana in. Harris up 1.2 points. Trump won this county by 6.8 points. That is big. That is big right there.
Is it though? One random county, not even in a swing state of Indiana. One thing I want to mention too, if you notice some of their clips buffer a little bit, they do mention it as an issue on their end. I picked the clips where there's not much buffering, but if you see a little bit of buffering, that's not on my end, that's not on your end, that's their election stream. They mention it again, it does get better, and I pick the good ones coming up.
Those of us who are the feminists, right? The ones who are supporting a woman's right to choose and women's access to healthcare, who are men who rarely get polled, who have partners who've been through this.
Again, this guy has a lot of interesting, let's say, takes on this.
Where we completely understand what is at stake. And I just feel like this kind of male feminist movement doesn't seem to ever really show up in polling. And I honestly believe that often...
I'm not even sure what to say to that. I don't even know what that means.
I'm not trying to be overly confident or arrogant or anything like that at all. I just want to reflect on, are we seeing trends right now? And it seems that we are for now, but we're going to have to see as we get more results in where we're going to be. And so,
from the moment the polls closed, though, you had to specifically be looking for positive Kamala news.
I get a sense that what we are seeing is a national shift. Whether it's enough to swing it for Kamala Harris, we won't know until much later tonight. But I get a sense that people are done, and you're seeing the season finale of the toxic masculinity that goes with the Donald Trump movement. You know, a decade was plenty, and it's really all that, I don't know about you, but it's certainly all that I can take in this moment.
Imagine thinking the last decade was defined by masculinity or toxic masculinity. Are you kidding? Have you seen a movie? Have you seen a television show lately?
With 30% reporting in Florida as well, but things are pretty close in Florida right now. Granted, it's 30%, but
they're not close in Florida.
You know, percentages being closer than they're supposed to be. Leftward shifts in Florida. I mean, that's definitely not something that the Trump, war room wants to be seeing right now. So
There is no leftward shift in Florida, so they're good.
Important to remember that there's very much two Americas, right? There's the reality that we inhabit, hopefully, which is we know that the sky is that way and the beach is that way. But I think that in the Donald Trump kind of MAGA Republican narrative, that it's a completely different America. And people who live in these rural places who don't have the kind of access that we have, they're not looking at the news and they're not on the feeds like we are all the time. They only have what he tells them to go on. And you know, a lot of these people...
They only have what Trump tells them? They don't have the internet? They don't have roads? They can't get out of these rural areas? What, dude?
Complain about the southern border. They're literally thousands of miles from it, you know, and often when interviewed, these people have never met an immigrant. And yet they say...
I mean, this is just a cartoonish view of people that live in rural areas. Who do you think sounds out of touch? The people in the rural areas or the person speaking?
It's not even legally possible to close the border. So a lot of these people in these rural areas are working on information that is from his world, from his reality, but it doesn't actually bear any resemblance to the reality that we live in.
I just want to give you the update of the first drop of the Allegheny County mail. Dina, you referenced that we were expecting it any moment. It went overwhelmingly in favor of Vice President Kamala Harris. And this is big. I mean, this is Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, on people to watch corporate media right now because they're literally picking data points to both sides this race.
The fact that media was both sidesing the data was actually helpful to Kamala, but apparently that's not biased enough for the Meidas Touch.
You know, it's important that I reflect to you that Trump's doing well in certain rural areas that are smaller, but it's not telling the full story. Like this Allegheny drop, Brett, I think is the biggest news, yet it's kind of being reported, if you're watching corporate media, as just some other random, there's a lot of data points here, but that may be the biggest data point thus far.
I think as of this moment in time, and of course, things could change at any moment, I think you'd much rather be Vice President Kamala Harris. But right now, we see that Dems are either matching or exceeding their 2020 margin in the Atlanta suburbs. So that is certainly very good news.
Now, I, used to work in that world, and so I've kind of understand how they operate. And what you're going to get from them tonight compared to what you get from us tonight could not be further apart. Because, election night for...
So it sounds like he's saying Meidas Touch is going to give it to us straight. Let's see if that happens.
These networks is like the Super Bowl in terms of advertising. And so it is in their interests to build the jeopardy and to make it look like it's closer than it is. And they do over-dramatize it. It is kind of built into the...
So again, he said that Meidas Touch was going to be different than the networks. Let's see moving forward. What do you think they're going to be like here?
Donald Trump is not a winning candidate. And as I see it, you don't go from the point that he started.
I wonder what this guy thinks right now.
So you tell me what Donald Trump has done that gives him a higher chance of winning this time round just based on his policy or his ability, because we also have him failing cognitively as well. We have a dementia, which we weren't talking about in 2020 or 2016. Where he is literally confusing Nancy Pelosi and Nikki Haley.
Look, it's so ridiculous. It's obviously so unfair. The run Donald Trump went for about 2 months before the election proves for sure that he's up to the job. Doing all those long podcasts, all those interviews, all those rallies. I mean, I couldn't do that. I'm way younger than Donald Trump. He has way more energy. And the idea that he makes gas, if you have 10 years, 9 years of Donald Trump in public life and politics, yes, you can find little examples of him saying maybe a name incorrectly over 9 years. Watch the 3-hour podcast with Joe Rogan. He's clearly cognitively very aware and sharp. That's just obviously true. If you think otherwise, Trump derangement syndrome, I've got to say.
Americans like a success story. They like a happy ending. And it's Kamala Harris that is providing this joy, this positivity, this great energy, this movement for families and for women and for young people. And Donald Trump doesn't...
I always find it funny when they describe her campaign as joy. So this is the first part of the video where they bring up something that's a little negative for Kamala.
to remind viewers specifically, like the reason the red mirage is a thing, right, is because rural counties, they'll report first because they have fewer votes to count.
Yes.
It's simple math at that point. So it tends to result.
So two things there. The rural mirage, they bring this up a lot. Basically, when Trump jumped out to an early lead, they're trying to say, oh, it's a mirage, it's a red mirage, it's a rural mirage. Also, this person here, I believe it's the first time he's appeared in this video. He brings up this thing that, oh, the cities, they're late to report. He brings this up a lot. It's sort of a cope, it sounds like.
Once again, the big focus is the blue wall. Will the blue wall hold? As of now, we are not seeing any cracks in that blue wall whatsoever. We're actually seeing also some positive news for Vice President Kamala Harris out of Georgia, which has.
So at this point in the night, the odds started to shift in Trump's favor in a pretty dramatic way. And you'll see there is a ton of delusion from this Meidas Touch channel. They do not want to admit it's going bad for Kamala.
Let's let the Republicans do the early celebrating, because the red mirage is a thing for a reason.
So the hope is, after Kamala Harris defeats Trump in Virginia, we see the red mirage slowly start to fade away. I know you guys remember 2020. It was a little bit nerve-wracking the night of. Actually, it was the exact same vibe. I remember in 2020, Florida went super red, unexpectedly red, and we were all sitting there like, wow. If Florida went red, is it over? No, it's Florida. Who cares about Florida? New update. Big DeKalb County drop. Looks fine. Still a long way to go for Kamala to win.
So you see here this tweet, 82% for Trump on Polymarket. I mean, I can't confirm that. That's just some random person posting on X, but that sounds accurate to the data I was seeing. I just don't know the exact time of the night. But notice how he conveniently ignores that on his screen.
Georgia could go either way. If she loses, it'll be less than 1%. It's going to be a tight race. Someone said, I'm feeling a little bit better watching this stream. Let's go. Yeah, there's no way Trump gets the popular vote.
That aged well. Wow.
Came here for optimism. Yeah, we're not even being uniquely optimistic. We're just breaking down her paths to victory and how we can be.
You're obviously being uniquely optimistic. At this point in the night, Trump was a clear favorite. Kamala needed a massive comeback.
There's nothing yet that we should be concerned about. If anything, we should really be quite pleased that it is playing out in this way. So, let's just be calm.
Didn't you say you're going to cover this differently than the networks? How is that not just trying to build suspense in your audience, or at least misleading them?
But I have to say, I spent some time in a really, really small rural farming town this summer out in the middle of America, as you would say. And the fact is everybody there looks the same. They all were white. And it's so much easier to say that that person over there that you've never met in your life, like, his claim.
You've never met them. She just has a cartoonish view of these people in this small town. Oh, you've never met. Have you ever even left this town?
That the Haitian immigrants were eating cats and dogs. Like, if you know somebody who's Haitian, you're not going to believe that claim. But if you're in a town that maybe you haven't met somebody from Haiti, right? Or you haven't met somebody from Mexico, or some country where their color is not white.
So again, people that live in small towns have roads and they can go to airports and they have the internet. This view is so ridiculous. It's obviously so incorrect, but it's also pretty embarrassing to be saying this stuff out loud.
Because if you haven't interacted with people from different countries, you are just going to believe it a little bit more. And I don't know how you get around that, frankly, right? Like, we're talking about like.
So these people have just never met anybody that's not also American. Oh my goodness.
Well, you give people some travel vouchers.
It would be a lot cheaper, right?
Right? You just tell them to go traveling around the world. Elon Musk has really thrown most of his cards onto the table. And it's funny, isn't it, how just a year or so ago, we all thought he was like Tony Stark. We didn't really think of him as being a particularly political person. And now he's just like the antithesis of that. He really is trying to buy this election. And he's also kind of come out as a white supremacist and a xenophobe and a racist. And
even how on X, like, he changed the algorithm so that his posts could be seen more. If
that's true, prove it. Their algorithm is open source. People say that. Show us in the algorithm where he's boosting certain accounts.
if you have the kind of enthusiasm that the Harris campaign had, you didn't need to boost your posts artificially.
That is so funny. And remember, their stream's a little buffery. I'm only going to show those clips if they're very important, and I'll just show them for a short amount.
The point that we're trying to make, which is exactly the same as what happened in 2020, is that the votes that get counted first invariably are those red Republican votes. And so
these people acted like they were the only people in the entire world that understood that concept. You don't think betting markets, other pollsters, other networks are aware that Trump voters tend to be rural voters, and they're putting that into their calculations?
And just to what's something coming in, just came in 9:45 Eastern time, is Decision Desk is saying that Kamala Harris has a 57% chance of winning Michigan. So huge, like great development there, let's say. I know we've got.
So that's a perfect example of incredible bias. One of the swing states, according to one company, is polling at 57% odds of winning. So barely a favorite. And it's one of the 7 swing states, and it's just one cherry-picked data from one company. That is obviously an incredible reach. It obviously shows there's a lot of bias happening at Meidas Touch in how they're trying to frame this race, and it certainly shows that Kamala at this point, her chances are very low.
And, we've talked a lot about how Harris has been so great, but let's talk about Tim Walz. Let's talk about Tim Walz in particular with this blue wall, of how much I think he has connected with these voters.
So I've talked about Tim Walz a little bit before on my channel. Not a good choice, in my opinion. The hand waving, not a good look, I don't think.
I don't know how he gets the energy. I mean, I know he's a runner and everything, but he's just... Do you see that shot the other day where he came off the aeroplane and he ran straight down the plane, straight onto the platform, straight up onto the stage, and just was like, just did not stop. And I was like, man, you've got some energy. So I think he's...
That's impressive. Getting off an airplane, going onto a podium, and then starting to talk. Most human beings could do that.
But similar to what you said, you couldn't find more of a Republican's nightmare in regards to a vice presidential candidate than Tim Walz. You're talking somebody who grew up kind of middle-class family.
The Associated Press, I do feel that there's a lot of very early calls on things tonight. I don't know if you're feeling the same. And I think that this, because they're coming out of Republican strongholds, I think this is all part of the insurrection plan, to kind of call it as early as possible. And if you think about how Steve Bannon, if he's the architect of this, might have set it up, he's like, okay, we're going to throw everything at these counts so that we can announce early. As we said, most of the announcements are in these kind of strong states that Trump would have won previously and would have won anyway. But maybe call me a conspiracist.
Yeah, you sound exactly like that right now.
But I just have a feeling that they're going early with a lot of this stuff. I mean, the polls have barely closed in a lot of these, I lost a friend because of Donald Trump. I made the mistake of telling him he'd been radicalized, and that was it. He never spoke to me ever again. We should just mention...
Are you sure it's him who is radicalized? Are you sure about that?
And it's so frustrating because there is an actual system that runs alongside it called the popular vote. And Democrats always win the popular vote. Only one time did they not win the popular vote, I think with George W. Bush. But otherwise, it's a consistent win that America is a liberal, progressive, thoughtful, diverse, integrated society. It is not a far-right Christian nationalist, anti-women, anti-minorities, anti-LGBTQ plus group that they would have us think. And so that's for me where the frustration comes from, because we know that there is a better system. It's not like they're even trying to hide it. They actually announced the popular vote. Hillary won the popular vote in 2016, which
Trump won in 2024.
Means that a female was already elected president. She just didn't win the Electoral College. And so that proves to me that America is ready for a female president. And it also proves to me, because of 2008 and Barack Obama, that America is ready for another black president as well. So
America's also ready for another Trump presidency.
It might seem like we're a broken record here, but all of those projected victories, nothing has happened that did not happen in 2020. That's the headline. If we had a Chiron right here, that was what it would say. Is that nothing so far that has happened we haven't already seen. We've seen this story before. We've seen the counts come in late. If you're just tuning in, it is a reminder that.
Look, again, I don't understand why they don't just be honest with their audience and say, look, it's not going very well for Kamala. We are hoping for a massive comeback.
We're experiencing the red mirage. You can probably feel it.
The New York Times needle, as I said, take their opinion with a pinch of salt, thinks that Trump is favored, but...
Take the New York Times needle with a pinch of salt? I never thought I'd hear a leftist say something like that about the New York Times.
Kamala needs to win 52% of the remaining vote to win, and they think she'll win 54% of it.
Sounds good.
As we do our best to navigate what is currently the red mirage. We told you it was coming. I know that there's a lot of anxiety tonight for those people who...
It's incredible. This late in the night, they're still saying the red mirage.
The ticker go back and forth. I believe the New York Times ticker is now favoring Donald Trump in the popular vote, which from what Anthony was saying at the start...
But they're so antiquated, aren't they? I mean, even the New York Times, I don't think of any of these organizations or publications as anything to look up to anymore. And the fact that, you know, a lot of these...
Let me just live in my bubble. Let me close my ears, not look at any data. Let's just keep the vibes going over here for Kamala.
And, you know, it really is important that these newspapers should be able to make the case for a candidate. And the fact that that hasn't happened, you know, I mean, what was it? The owner of the LA Times, what business is he in? He's in some really kind of...
We want the newspapers to be biased. The fact they're trying, at least publicly, to not be biased, we have a problem with it.
And if Trump were to win, America would experience something that previously was only reserved for the nations that America kind of went into and brought about regime change. Because that's how I describe Donald Trump's future presidency, if he were to win, one of regime change, where the...
Did this guy pay attention to politics at all between 2016 and 2020? If you're not aware, dude, he was already in there.
You know, the billionaire with courage in this election cycle was Taylor Swift. You know, not the men who own the LA Times and the New York Times, because she's in the prime of her career and she was willing to go out on a limb because she's not a political figure. It did not help her whatsoever to come out.
It also doesn't look like it helped Kamala.
Inherent and flagrant misogyny doesn't disqualify him. It doesn't even rank in his disqualification factors for a lot of, let's be honest, a lot of white men in America that don't feel like that's a deciding factor.
Another way you could tell that the night probably was not going as these three people wanted it to, they weren't even really talking about election results. They were just kind of going on bizarre rants like that. So if it was not already clear, it is late into election night at this point. Donald Trump is a clear favorite. You wouldn't know it, though, from watching this stream.
But just be understanding of the fact that we don't make the rules are set, and also the system is set up to count those rural votes first, count those Trump votes first, and count those Harris votes second.
So I just wanted to read from a letter. It looks like the Harris campaign sending out a letter to their staff, kind of updating them as we are all kind of paying attention. So let me just kind of try to quickly read this letter. As polls close across the country, I wanted to give everyone an update on what we're seeing. As we have known all along, this is a razor-thin race. Thanks to the amazing team, we have seen incredible turnout across the battleground states. So the campaign projecting optimism still, saying that this is in line with their expectations. It's either in line with their expectations or exceeding their expectations. So as we have talked about before, still a lot of hope. Great email. I'm happy to hear that email. I don't know what you guys think.
Great email. I mean, this is getting a little pathetic. Great email. Lots of optimism.
There's a lot of noise right now. Early, a lot of people in the MAGA crowds, you can see, are almost ready to pop their champagne bottles like they did circa 2020.
Because it's not early right now.
And it looks though like the reporting is that the House is looking good for Democrats. It's going to take a while, they think, for all those votes to come in, again, because it's a lot of...
Nope.
mail-in ballots, but and it's not just white men. He picked up some popularity among non-white men, and I think Ben kind of alluded to it in the very beginning of our live stream of like what's happening with the men, because I do think obviously racism is like a huge part of this, but I do also
Obviously, right?
But I think that there's something that you're saying that I find very interesting about this. There's a toxic masculinity, and when men feel threatened by women especially, they tend to glue together. And you can even feel that, if you went to a wedding, for example, right? The bride's over there with her bridesmaids and all the girls are hanging out and the boys don't really know what to do because it's like the bride's day. So they're all, getting drunk at the bar. I think that this natural tribalism is...
That's a strange example. Is that what you do at a wedding? That's a pretty weirdly specific example there.
But the saddest part of the story is that Donald Trump doesn't care for anybody, male or female.
No.
He has absolutely no emotional connection with any of his supporters. He's simply here to stay out of prison and make as much money as possible in the meantime. And he has been rinsing these poor people who will give them their last dime.
Look, maybe this term is being overused a little bit lately, but that is just Trump derangement syndrome. I don't know what else to call it. The idea that Donald Trump is into politics for the money. I mean, if you want to be cynical, argue that he's in there for the power or for like the glory or for his ego. Again, if you want to be cynical, argue that for the money. He was already rich. He did not need more money. The idea that he would be president, not be president for 4 years, then be president again at 78 years old. Do you think he's going through all that for 12 years to like change some of the rules for his golf courses in a more advantageous way? How could you say that he's putting himself through all this stuff for money when he's already rich? That argument truly makes no sense.
I really do feel that we're still on track for a Kamala Harris win for the presidency. That's how...
That is so funny. At this point in the night, it's very late into the night. Their stream is almost over. The fact he's still saying that is pure comedy.
The votes are coming in big cities. It's going to be a while. I'm getting inundated with texts.
So still a long way to go. Still very early in the evening, despite, us feeling the effects of the non-stop talkathon. There are a lot of people I'm seeing in the chat and messages that I'm seeing of people like throwing in the towel. And I'm trying to explain that we are not even close to that yet. We are not even close. And I'm sure that at Kamala HQ, they're still feeling pretty confident about the way the evening is going right now.
There is no way at this point in the evening Kamala HQ is confident. I don't know why he thinks he can say that. That's so funny.
Because I know these people, by the way, that have done this, where it's like how you can look your daughter in the eye and then go and vote against her rights to exist in this country and her rights to be...
Her rights to exist? Did he accidentally there make a pro-life argument?
We don't make any apologies for where we lean, but there are areas that sometimes...
So they finally, this is 6 hours into the stream, this is one of the only times they acknowledge that Donald Trump is doing not just well, but incredibly well in this election. Again, this group strung along their audience, in my opinion, more than any other network, any other television channel that I saw.
Need to be addressed, such as in Michigan. A startling swing that was noted is that Joe Biden won the Latino vote in Michigan by 11 points in 2020. And it, according to polling that came out on exit poll, Trump got 60% of that vote, which is almost a 36-point swing.
Yeah, definitely a male problem there in Michigan. Also, some reporting that Harris is looking like the underdog in Pennsylvania, evidently. There's a senior Democrat in the state that says, quote, it would take a massive overperformance in the suburban counties like Chester and Munco. It's not likely, but it is possible. So not a great...
Finally.
Had a bit of a loss of words other than to reflect on hoping that our country can weather this. I'm hopeful. Hope springs eternal. But yeah.
So they were about 2 hours late, but it sounds like they're finally shifting the mood to one of negativity because they obviously wanted Kamala to win.
because there were a lot of people that want this version of America, the chaos, the hate, the misogyny.
Is there still a path? Yes. Am I going to act like that path is a likely path? No, because I'm not going to lie to people who are watching this network. But the path right now is the blue wall, which...
Have you been paying attention to your stream for the last 2 hours? There's been a ton of deception.
And by the way, did Vice President Kamala Harris run a great campaign? I would say yes. I think they put it all on the field.
I would say no.
Moment, but I see some people in the chat saying, well, what the F? Like, why are you guys talking like it's over? Let me be very clear.
Those people in the chat were probably watching the stream and actually believing all the spin.
It's not over yet. However, I'm not going to ever shy away from telling you how we truly feel in the moment. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to say...
Well, you just had 3 anchors doing the biggest spin zone, the Bill O'Reilly spin zone, the biggest version of that I've seen in a while.
I believe that the American people who have voted for Donald Trump and have bought into his rhetoric they are victims. They are victims of a national mental health issue, as we've discussed many times on my shows, where this Trump can take...
What a ridiculous way, though, to think about the largest voting bloc in the country. Mental health crisis, mental health issues. Again, Trump won the popular vote. That's a ridiculous way to think about, again, the largest voting bloc there is.
But I haven't written it off yet. You know, she's at 210 currently. He's at 230, 270 to win. That red mirage will slow down. And as these mail-in votes start to get counted...
Keep the dream alive.
So it's not probably going to be called until tomorrow or much later tomorrow. And that's something that we need to kind of hold our breath for. But I'm not done yet. I'm still feeling quite optimistic. And I think she did run a very good campaign. And, you know, maybe...
I mean, that's just pure delusion. I don't even know how to sugarcoat that. You're so optimistic at this point?
Have a bit of a pit in my stomach, and why I'm not, you know, as gung-ho on the red mirage of it all. It looks like Trump is even preparing to speak and kind of spike the football soon. And, you know, that's not something we're going to cover right now because he hasn't won.
Okay, so the end of the stream there, I'll show one more clip of the morning after, just about 15 seconds. Like that guy said, they never showed any of the moments of Trump doing a victory speech, anything like that, but one final clip right here.
Good morning, Meidas Mighty, joined by my brother Brett. Certainly not the show that I wanted to do this morning. Certainly not the mode that I wanted this channel to go in to. I was...
So with that said, I'll finish the video here. It was actually difficult to make this video. It's a little bit longer, but it was hard to choose which clips to keep in and which clips to keep out. When I was watching their stream, it was like a wild take every 30 seconds. I do have a few more videos planned in this format to come, this election format. But other than that, thank you very much for watching this video. Like and subscribe, leave a comment. I've been very happy just to see lots of comments, lots of new views lately. So that's been great. With that said, have a great day.